and see what is up. Click that like button. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. We're gonna talk about Green. President Green, come on down.
A history here.
Let's go.
I'd like to get this hearing in today. You know, everybody needs to just focus on the relevant facts, okay? I know there's a history here.
Are you talking up by Sunset Mart? Up the hill by the gas station?
Yeah.
Okay. Why did you? All right. Who's responsible here?
What's that?
Who's responsible here? Whose house is this?
Let's get that data.
Okay. Drive careful, okay?
Welcome. Let's get that data. Okay, guys, come on in. President Green is on a world tour, book tour, that is. He traveled so far. He's going to be in Coeur d'Alene this coming weekend, September 8th. So if anybody's going, make sure you have your book. But there's an article that came out January 22nd, 2024. I don't know if anybody's seen this article. Fast forward to the goods, but don't know if any of you guys know that the University of Idaho was in some financial troubles. Okay. Really, I was hired because we were already having financial issues. Okay. So anybody out there that thinks that Green and why he was hired, he's a financial guy and they wanted to keep it under wraps. So the school there was financial issues. So he was coming in. So think about that. And next, they talk about COVID. We'll talk about her later. And we're going to get right here to, he talks about politics and that they don't talk about politics unless it has directly something to do with their community. And then right here, these are the couple questions that have to do that in an interview, Green was asked and he answered. So the first one was, you dealt with a horrific crisis when 4 students were murdered in 2022. What was your initial reaction to the news? How does a president even begin to address such shocking tragedy? This was his response. It is something I still have trouble talking about. If I'm being completely honest, my initial reaction was the same one I have now, profound sadness for those students and those families. Because of that, I don't like to talk about it much, but we did have to respond, and I had a great team. We had a crisis management team before this ever came up, but you can't ever prepare for something like this. We got the team assembled early. We worked through the night, figuring out next steps and how we could help police identify the students. What? I wouldn't be completely honest if I didn't say that there was a lot of emotion in the room, which ranged from sadness to anger because of what had happened. So I'm kind of confused here. They worked through the night. We worked through the night figuring out next steps and how we could help police identify the students. What students? I'm just curious what students. The ones that were seen on body cams and like the backgrounds of body cams, or are we talking about the victims? Next. We worked through the night. You know, guys, I'm being serious. What's like, who are they? Wouldn't the person that leased the house be able to give you that, like that? Okay. The brutal nature of the murders prompted a lot of sensationalism, coverage, and online conspiracy. What? How did you keep the story straight when information on the case moved at a much slower pace than the speculation? And how did you communicate such horrific news to the campus, especially when students were afraid and the killer was still at large? Our strategy was to focus on our employees, our students, and their safety, responds Green, and remind people that law enforcement had a job to do and that it would be wrong for any of us to speculate about who the murderer was and to accuse potentially innocent people. The students in particular got it because they're probably more savvy about social media than any of us. It was the employees and some of us who are of a different generation that really struggled with this. But we got the message out that the police will do their job, and we have every confidence in them that they will identify who this is. It was painful, but we just had to continue to communicate to our students about what we were doing to keep them safe. Remember what Ann Taylor was talking about, why you have to change venues? Because that is what everybody was focused on. A large part of our community was very afraid. This needs to be moved. And parents were concerned about sending their students back to campus if the person had not been apprehended. Ironically, the person was apprehended right before school started back up, like they needed it to. We subsequently or substantially increased the security on campus. We had the Idaho State Police everywhere. So when you see those, you know, how many Moscow police officers are working, the Idaho State Police, we had the Idaho State Police everywhere. Notice how he didn't say like local. We saw a lot of them at the Sigma Chi House. We also provided an online option to parents who were uncomfortable sending their kids back to campus, but back to campus, back to the city of Moscow. We were working on all of that when they apprehended the accused. Now that's something that's interesting, because what were they doing for the 6 to 7 weeks prior to, they had the break of Thanksgiving, but then they had to come back, and you have a couple weeks until the middle of December, like what, 10th, 11th, December 7th, something like that. So they didn't have an online option right after it happened, because he's saying right here, like, that we were working on that. We were working on that. But then, so we were working on that when they apprehended the accused. And then, of course, that changed. So they didn't need it. They felt that once we apprehended him, we didn't have to, people were fine with, oh, okay, thank God we can go back to school, right? Hence his arrest. 6 of 8. Okay. The book briefly mentions the importance of taking care of yourself in highly emotional situations. How do you do that? And how important is self-care for presidents when dealing with tragic situations? Okay. Before we answer that, he just had to remind himself that he has to take off blocks of his day. We're going to talk about chapter 43 of the book. When evil visits your campus. Going to point out some things for my lovely book play. I should just press play for all of us. Okay. Sunday, November 13th, 2022 started like any other Sunday, a day of rest for Scott. Weather-wise, it was a strange weekend, with the temperatures fluctuating wildly on the Palouse for that time of year. Scott had settled in at University House with a game of football on TV and thoughts of the upcoming fall recess and Thanksgiving only a week away. But as he watched the competition unfold on the screen, remember, guys, Seattle was playing the Patriots earlier. So as he watched the competition unfold on the screen before him, something just felt off. Not with the game, but in general. He wasn't sure what it was, but something was nagging at him. Lee Espy's day started as a relaxing Sunday at home across town. Lee was the division operations officer for finance and administration at the U of I. I woke up, spent time doing chores around the house, went on a run, and after cleaning up, had settled in to watch a basketball game. What basketball game? I'm being serious. What basketball game? There's basketball. It's November. There is no basketball. So I'm curious what basketball game he's truly talking about. Did he mean to say football? Okay. That also sounds like a morning that Brian Kohlberger would have had. I woke up, spent time doing chores around the house, went on a run, and after cleaning up, had settled in to watch a basketball game. But basketball, there's no basketball games. It would have to be a preseason tournament game, unless he's talking about college basketball games. Which he could be. I mean, why wouldn't he be watching basketball? I'm just surprised he wasn't be like, I want to watch my Vandals. Shortly after noon, Lee's phone rang shortly after 12 noon. I received a call from Jack Nichols, U of I Executive Director of Public Safety and Security. The only words that came out of his mouth were, "Have you heard what's going on?" End quote. When I told him I hadn't, he informed me that there had been an incident on King Road, a quadruple homicide, likely students. Jake informed me that he was out of town, but heading this way. And I suggested that I go and start setting up a command center at the University of Idaho administration building until he and others could arrive. Lee knew it fell to him to inform and gather the Vandal tribe immediately. He called Scott. No answer. He quickly sent a text which prompted Scott to instantly call. A phone call all presidents fear. That fateful Sunday just before 1 p.m., Scott learned of the tragic and brutal murders of 4 people in Moscow at a home on King Road near the University of Idaho campus, in his childhood home where he grew up, where his parents owned a home that's their home that they owned when Scott Coomer Green grew up. So 1 o'clock. The call was short. Lee said, I let him know the plan to set up the command post, and he agreed to head to the administration building. Vice President of Student Affairs and Dean of Student Blaine Eccles was preparing to go to Costco with his wife just before noon. He received an alert on his phone about an unconscious individual at a residence on King Road. I don't believe that that's what the alert said. What alert came out at noon? So you might want to write that down, guys. I am so late. I've been waiting for this all day. You're not late. We just got started. Again, just before noon, the 911 call came out at 11:58. So he was alert? Was he listening to the scanner? Just before noon, he received an alert on his phone about an unconscious individual at a residence on King Road. My protocol for stuff like that is that I don't do anything proactive because police or security is responding. They know to call me when and if it's an emergency. What? But scanners don't alert you. And then his next sentence is basically saying that he got a message. Hey, I think something went down at this house. What do you mean? You're not even there yet. The call would have just came in right before noon, 11:58. So my protocol for stuff like that is that I don't do anything. But stuff like what? Do you guys know how many calls there are that go out to the university of unconscious people all the time? Drug overdoses, more or less. After covering this case and going through all of the police, like daily, just people calling and saying stuff. What about the call a little bit earlier that was at 11:13, 11:33 about the canines needing to like go sniff for drugs for, wow, right? Thank you so much for the new members. Sherry Walker, welcome. Mama J, welcome. Shake it. Janet, woo woo, 11 months. Hopefully no postpartum. Member for 10 months. Oh, look at that. Baby time. Heather Licious, 82, member for 20 months. Shake it. Christy, Nevada, member for 5 months. Uh-oh. Moon, baby. Gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much, LA. And all of you guys. There you go. I feel like I'm at church and I can go ahead and pass out the blood and the wafers. Okay. Hi, Boston. Love you. Mwah. Oh, the mom of Carson, 15 months. Oh, shit, baby number 2. Look out. So, yeah. That call came when Blaine was in the parking lot of Costco, meaning they know to call me when and if it's an emergency. That call came when Blaine was in the parking lot at Costco. So they hadn't left yet. Now he's in the car, the parking lot at Costco. Guess how far that is from campus? Campus Captain Tyson Barrett from the Moscow Police Department, MPD, informed Blaine that 4 individuals were found dead and believed to be college age, most likely murdered. I just couldn't wrap my head around what was going on, Blaine said. He immediately contacted Tori Lawrence and Scott. While his phone buzzed and chimed with dozens of notifications, his wife drove them back to Moscow as he handled the onslaught of calls and texts. Once back in Moscow, he headed to the incident command on campus. The news that the victims were most likely killed only hours before. Wait, what did you say? The news that the victims were most likely killed only hours before and found dead in a house just off campus in an area where students frequently rented apartments would go viral in a matter of minutes, blowing up social media. The news and speculation sowed fear into the community, and despite the emotional toll, thrust the university into high gear to be at the top of its game and stay there. Lee contacted the University of Idaho's safety and security team and Jody Walker, the ambulance chaser of University of Idaho. She is the co-chief marketing officer, though, Jody Walker. You need your marketing officer. I also called and texted the leadership team asking them to meet at the administration building. Some had heard of the incident, others had not, all mobilized immediately. The command center comprised the right people with the right expertise. No offense, but nobody is an expert in a situation like that. Okay. The command center comprised the right people with the right expertise and decision-making authority, all focused on how to manage communications to the extent possible, mitigate future risks stemming from the incident, and coordinate with law enforcement partners. Thankfully, they weren't starting at ground zero. The University of Idaho's emergency response framework outlines the initial steps the executive policy group, EPG, must take regarding a threat of this nature. The EPG consisted of Scott, Torrey, Blaine, Lee to oversee security. So the 1, 2, 3, 4 people to oversee security. Jody to oversee public relations. Acting General Counsel Kent Nelson, and Vice President of Finance and Administration Brian Fosey. They, along with Jake Nichols and other public safety and security team members, immediately gathered in the president's office at the administration building to invoke the university's crisis management policy. First, the group quickly crafted and sent a vandal alert to the campus. So everybody's wondering where the vandal alert come from. The vandal alert came from the security team. Once they were all in this room, the first thing that they did was the group quickly crafted and sent out a vandal alert to the campus, informing that MPD was conducting a homicide investigation and instructing employees and students to stay away from the King Road area and shelter in place. At this point, we had no idea if there was an ongoing threat or if this was an isolated incident, Lee shared. I remember pivoting between the Office of Public Safety and Security team and then the EPG team sharing information. Once President Green and Lawrence made it to the command center, so the way that they wrote this is like basically you made that determination to send out the vandal alert before Green and Lawrence were in the command center. Where were they? He's right there. He lives right there. Again, once President Green and Lawrence made it to the command center, President Green asked me what we knew. Do you guys not think of like, I think is it the movie, like what, Air Force One? Any of those president, like, what do we know? Brief me. So President Green asked, what do we know? I remember the hair standing up on the back of my neck, looking into his eyes and telling him that 4 people were dead, presumably students. He let out a sigh of disbelief, pain, and sorrow all at the same time and rubbed his eyes, and then immediately began to look weary with the painful thought that the 4 young lives had been cut short. Even though there was not much information, the mood was somber as we knew the victims were likely students, Scott recalled. The team's immediate concern was for the safety of the students' employees sheltering in place. No one knew if there was still an active threat. Wouldn't you call the police and ask them if you have open lines of communication with the police, campus police? No one knew if there was still an active threat. At a minimum, the team knew there were U of I employees and students sheltering on campus at the university library, the Pittman Center, the theater, and the College of Law. I am certain everyone was scared and wanted to go home. I thought you told them to shelter wherever they were, they couldn't leave those places. MPD Captain Barrett reached out to Blaine to help coordinate getting the friends at the King Road residence away from the crime scene. Those people need to be interviewed and they need to be separated. Blaine immediately contacted Carrie Feely, Associate Dean of Students, along with U of I counselor and a U of I case manager to go to MPD and offer support, comfort, and resources to those individuals ushered away from the scene. This is probably why they don't know who was at the scene, because they were just ushered out of there. Blaine also contacted Director of Fraternity and Sorority Life, Nick O'Neill. Why? It's really important to be prepared when MPD released the names of the victims. Okay, now this is where it doesn't make sense. I thought that they worked tirelessly all through the night to identify the victims. So I would love to know, can we get a phone? Can we get a call log here? What time was Nick O'Neill called? Just curious. Because be prepared for the names of the victims. We had a strong suspicion, Greek students were involved because of reports we'd heard. Like, what reports? Like the address of the house? What reports could you have possibly heard? What reports were you given? Again, I just want to see the phone records on that. Blaine explained. But our protocol is whenever a student dies, we help track down contact information and give that to the police. But our protocol is whenever a student dies, well, how often are students dying over there? How many U of I students died, in 2021 and in 2020 and 2019? I'm just curious. It's very strange because the way that they're treating this is like it was an on-campus house, but then they always wanted to say like, no, this is off campus. This is off campus. Okay, continuing on. Again, I want to just say that one more time. Blaine also contacted Director of Fraternity and Sorority Life, Nick O'Neill, to be prepared when MPD released the names of the victims. Because we just had a strong suspicion Greek students were involved because of reports we'd heard. Blaine explained. But our protocol is whenever a student dies, we help track down contact information and give that to the police. We don't reach out directly to families initially. We give the police as much information as we can in a legal sense so that they can do their jobs of notifying the families. Details were few, but MPD informed campus safety and security later that afternoon. So then they didn't work through the night, right? That the attack appeared targeted from what they observed, you guys. This is wild. Later that afternoon, so between, that would be noon, you got to talk about the afternoon, nothing past 6 p.m. That's not going to be considered that's nighttime. I'm even being kind giving you 6. So let's ballpark it between 3 and 5 p.m. Later that afternoon, that the attack appeared targeted from what they observed. You guys, Payne didn't go into that house until 4, the detectives. Right? You guys all remember that, right? They didn't get there till 4. Woo-wee. Do you think that President Green is going to be a witness? I think he's a fucking witness. Again, they did not believe that there was an active threat, but the community should remain vigilant. The EPG and safety and security teams sent another vandal alert. So if we're going in chronological order here, then that would mean that they were told that it was a targeted attack before the second vandal alert. So who's putting a timeline together out there? This is really important. It's all right here. Again, so think about that now. When did this vandal alert come out? The second one. I believe it was like at 2, was it 2:37? 4 o'clock? Investigation continues. This is what the vandal alert said. Investigation continues. Suspect unknown. MPD does not believe that there is an active threat. Shelter in place lifted. Remain vigilant. If you have any information about the incident, please call Moscow police. And everybody be like, what incident? Where? What are you talking about? Oh, refer to this. Yep. The one before where it's talked about, like, there was an incident over by King. This effectively gave those sheltering the green light to exit those buildings and travel home. So then, yes, when they put this out there, that would have been a campus thing. Wherever you're at, you're sheltering in place. So that's why everybody was in those buildings. How come nobody has been interviewed then? Think about this. How come nobody has been interviewed to talk about their experience of sheltering in place? And were they not calling like their family and loved ones and saying, oh my God, something's going down. Our campus is on lockdown. There should be a bunch of text messages. Should be some phone calls. There should be a bunch of witnesses to be talking about the fact of wherever they were, at the theater or at the law building or, but I can't recall hearing or seeing on the news anybody that was interviewed that was part of the shelter in place on campus in one of those buildings. If you guys have seen one out there, please email me. Okay. Throughout the afternoon, the EPG and safety and security teams coordinated an increased safety plan for campus. Quote unquote, with the security team's advice, they decided to double our security numbers and patrols on campus and reached out to third-party security partners to provide more visibility, vehicles, and additional bodies, Lee outlined. Our internal team worked additional shifts, and we hired more guards. Who? Where'd you get these? You had these applications laying around. So we're going to we hired more guards who weren't trained. Like just newbies. Hey, come on. I mean, I don't know. That's just weird. We hired more guards. Our team set aside discussions of budgets and financial implications. So we did not even talk about what this was going to cost us. We just, money, that's how I'm gathering it. Money wasn't an issue. So again, our team set aside discussions of budgets and financial implications, empowering the security team to move and build the right structure to keep our students safe and faculty safe. The teams collaborated with MPD to determine whether the victims were U of I students. The teams collaborated with MPD to determine whether the victims were U of I students. MPD provided the names to Blaine, who confirmed that the 4 victims were all vandals, victims of a senseless crime. Ethan Chapin, a freshman from Mount Vernon, Washington, and a member of the Sigma Chi fraternity, majoring in recreation, sport, and tourism management in the College of Education, Health, and Human Sciences. Kaylee Gonsalves, a senior from Rathdrum, Idaho, majoring in general studies in the College of Letters, Arts, and Social Sciences, and a member of, this will have her as a member of that sorority. Alfie. Xana Kernodle, a junior from Post Falls, Idaho, majoring in marketing in the College of Business and Economics, and a member of Pi Beta Phi sorority, and Maddie Mogan, a senior from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, majoring in marketing in the College of Business. Ethan, Kaylee, Xana, and Maddie were popular and active vandals who kept up with the rigors of classwork and enjoyed the destination campus atmosphere at the U of I. The EPG members compiled student bios and campus ID photos of the 4 students to distribute once MPD assured they had contacted the families. At that moment, the reality printed on paper caused the full realization of the crime and its impact on the university to hit the team. Seeing President Green grapple with his first knowledge of the extent of this terrible crime was when I was first pulled out the initial state of shock and felt the normal feelings that I think most people go through when confronted by something this tragic so close to home, Lee shared. Blaine suggested to Scott and Tori that considering Thanksgiving break would begin at the end of the week, maybe they should cancel classes for the entire week. Scott agreed. The tragedy would land hard on the students and employees, especially those who knew the victims. He made the early decision to cancel classes the following day, Monday, November 14th, and take the remainder of the pre-Thanksgiving week one day at a time. Late that afternoon into the early evening. So now it's late that afternoon into the early evening. Blaine, 4 counselors, and 2 case managers from the University of Idaho Counseling and Testing Center began visiting the Greek houses directly impacted. They went to the sororities and the fraternity house. We went to Beta Pi first, then Alpha, he shared. Then I drove up to Sigma Chi. By the time I visited each house, they'd reached out to their chapter advisors and some alumni. I really want to know what Dave has to say after, if he's read this book in this part right here. Again, by the time I visited each house, they'd reached out to their chapter advisors and some alumni, and they were there with the members of the fraternity and the sororities. The team began setting up drop-in counseling services to start the following morning to serve those needing help processing the vicious crime. Jody prepared a more comprehensive communication to campus. At 5:17 p.m., the teams sent an updated vandal alert. You guys, this is wild. Officer Payne, aka Detective Payne Blaker, they did not go through the house until 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock. How in the world were these people already visiting the sororities and the fraternity if detective didn't go through like 4 o'clock when they were doing everything? I mean, four to I mean, I don't know how long their walkthrough was. Can't wait to see these body cam timestamps. So at 5:17, the teams sent an updated vandal alert. Moscow police continues to investigate the death of 4 people near campus. They indicated there is no ongoing threat. More information available soon via email. At approximately 9 p.m., Scott sent a memo titled "Classes Canceled to Honor Student Victims" to the campus community at 9 p.m. MPD asked us to hold off naming the victims until they could ensure they had notified all appropriate next of kin, so we did not include that information in the first memo. The entire area, Moscow, Pullman, and all the communities surrounding the 2 college towns sat stunned, shocked, and scared. Doors that had never been locked before suddenly were. The hardware stores would see a marked up tick in the sale of deadbolts. Families sat at the dinner table having discussions they may never have had before. Stay vigilant, don't go anywhere alone, and say something if you see something. Whoever committed the atrocity was still at large. Around noon the next day, Monday, Scott issued another memo to campus identifying the victims. It was tremendously important to him that he also convey his empathy and share his own grief with the Vandal family. His message reiterated that drop-in counseling services were in place, described how to ask for help for a friend in need, detailed the presence of increased campus security, and gave the green light to students who wanted to leave campus and participate in classes remotely. Faculty would excuse student absences and display or record their courses for access via Zoom to accommodate students. Understandably, the administration received pressure from a small number of parents and students who wanted the campus closed. Killer still at large, but no threat to the community because this is an isolated target attack. Duh. But yeah, they go arrest Brian Culver with no ties. Oh, that just kind of blew up on their face. But they also heard from many students who wanted to be on campus together with their friends during the emotional time. The university incorporated flexibility to serve both cohorts of students, but I bet you if you would have said that you didn't know if this was an isolated, targeted incident, then nobody would want to be on that campus, right? Wild. We were getting a massive amounts of calls and emails from parents saying we should cancel classes, and they were going to bring their daughter or son home, Blaine shared. Students were scared. They were asking, can I go home? And what about my classes? I just kept saying, you do what you need to do. We'll help and support you in whatever you need to figure this out. There's no rule book for how to navigate through this. I'm nothing but proud of how our institution responded during such a horrific time frame. Blaine and his staff also coordinated to send U of I counselors to classrooms when classes resumed the next day to encourage engagement and discuss available services. These people had the balls to say that there was nothing there, that it was targeted, isolated, and not knowing how many people at that time it could have just been one person, it could have been 5 people. It could have been like kind of like a terrorist attack where, okay, we did that, and oh wait, nobody left. Okay, now we're going to do it again. They had no idea. It's actually sick when you think about it. But they couldn't have the place be up in an induced panic. But that's when you had Kaylee's sister on the news saying, "What are you people doing? You need to leave. You need to leave." These people were murdered in their homes while they were sleeping, right? Like, you're not safe there. So the classes resumed on Tuesday, so they had off on Monday. So Blaine and his staff also coordinated to send U of I counselors to classrooms when classes resumed the next day to encourage engagement and discuss available services. They also helped reach out to faculty and staff. I didn't want anyone to learn about a significant death in their life through an email, he said. Moscow, Idaho suddenly became known internationally as media from all over the world converged on the small town, which was unprepared for the ways and tactics of big city reporters. I'm not a big city reporter, but you're damn right, we took over that town. Didn't even have to go there. But I went a couple times afterwards. Big city reporters, most ethical, some not. The media wasn't there yet the next day. The teams worked to get MPD the information needed to conduct the investigation. Excuse me, hold on. What? Wait. The teams worked to get MPD the information needed to conduct the investigation. What was, excuse me, bless me. What was that? What information did the university need to give them? What team? What? What information? God bless me. Thank you. Okay, again, the teams worked to get MPD the information needed to conduct the investigation. Prepared talking points for the press conference, you guys. Prepared talking points for press conferences. and responded to media requests for information and interviews with university personnel in limited cases. Wait, stop. Hold on a second. The university gave the police their talking points in the murder press conference. You heard it right. Woo-wee. Again, the teams worked to get MPD the information needed to conduct the investigation, prepared talking points for the press conferences, and responded to media requests for information and interviews with university personnel in limited cases. They also worked aggressively to address student and employee safety concerns and the need for counseling and flexible learning methods. Now, maybe it was just that they gave President Green talking points and Blaine Eccles. Okay. Cat's out the bag, man. Green wrote the PCA. Payne signed it. Fuck, wait, I'm in Twilight. Oh, God. They also worked aggressively to address student and employee safety concerns and the need for counseling and flexible learning methods. You guys already did that during COVID. Like, it can't be that difficult. You're just going to go back to COVID ways. Meetings to update the university's senior leadership team and provide them with talking points and gatherings with the victims' fraternity and sororities filled the following days. So the following days, they were heavy with the sororities and the fraternities. Okay. So again, meetings to update the university's senior leadership team and then provide them with the talking points and gatherings with the victims' fraternity and sororities filled the following days. Hundreds of messages of shock and condolences poured in, and responding to the hordes of reporters that descended on Moscow took over all regular business. Frankly, the town was ill prepared for a crime of this magnitude, Scott said. Moscow had always been deemed a safe community. Now, is that true, Scott? Is that true? Because that's the biggest thing you wanted to change when you wrote your little whatever to be the next president. That's the number one thing. You said there was safety concerns there. Again, frankly, the town was ill prepared for a crime of this magnitude, Scott said. Moscow had always been deemed a safe community, and the U of I campus, year after year, appeared on lists as one of the safest campuses in the country. You guys, I'm telling you, need to read what he wrote on why, and then how he was handpicked to be the next president, and what his number one thing was. His number one thing was safety. He wanted to get Moscow, Idaho back to where it was. He is so full of shit. This is lies. Oh, shit. They must not know we dig. All right. After the incident, the town was ripe for a clash of cultures. The straight shooting, trusting Westerns, and the big city take no prisoners national press. No, that would be you dividing by making two groups like that. That's insanity. Even saying that. Why are they even writing that? Combine that with the internet sleuths who began investigating and calling out their own suspects. And we had a media circus unfolding. Well, who the fuck was doing that shit? We weren't. We were over here getting our hands on body cams. We were over here helping MPD. Not you. I didn't see you putting out them body cams for us to see what's going on over there. I give you that maybe we were sleuthing, but shit. At the University of Idaho, the team remained empathetic, They were careful to whom they gave interviews and stayed on message, foregoing speculation, but getting the word out on how they were beefing up security on campus and taking care of their students' employees. Why did you have to beef up security if it was an isolated, targeted event? Okay. They did not want to add to the frenzy or the speculation and handled themselves accordingly. Scott expressed empathy in public and in private, Lee shared. He expressed empathy for the students and those of us who served alongside him during this incident. He also expressed appreciation. At every turn, he thanked me, talked about how we all needed to find ways to take care of ourselves and voiced confidence in our team. 300 miles away, the us versus them in-state rivalry morphed into an us and them show of support. And when Boise State University held a candlelit vigil on November 17th to honor the 4 University of Idaho students. Why wouldn't they? As Dean of Students, Blaine and his team began planning an on-campus vigil. So there was a candle vigil at Boise State University before there was one at the University of Idaho. The us versus them, it's the University of Idaho, and the them is Boise State. As Dean of Students, Blaine and his team began planning an on-campus vigil. Given that some students were leaving, at that point, it was estimated 25% left based on parking. What? Wait, hold on. As Dean of Students, Blaine and his team began planning an on-campus vigil. Given that some students were leaving, at that point, it was estimated 25% left based on parking. Due to fear and Thanksgiving break, they decided to hold the vigil when the student population was back from holiday. Blaine sent out a memo to students regarding the updated plan and reiterated the services available to help students process the emotional impact of the crime. Initially, I wanted the vigil outside, Blaine explained. I wanted to create a space because we knew this was going to be impactful for the entire community. If we had it inside, it wouldn't be able to have candles. But the decision to move it inside was the absolute right call to make. One reason was because of the weather. The second reason was for safety purposes. MPD felt more comfortable with us moving it inside because they didn't have anyone in custody yet. Carrie, Corey, and Ryan, they were the violence prevention program coordinators, the campus events and production manager. They worked together with compassion and respect to plan the vigil and accommodate the needs of the families, students, employees, and Moscow community. People and organizations nationwide contacted Blaine's staff to offer assistance, including Alaska Airlines offering complimentary tickets to the family. That's awesome. Meanwhile, MPD brought in the FBI to collaborate on the investigation and released that they knew the murderer used a bladed weapon to commit the crimes. Reporters continued to pour into town. Idaho Governor Brad Little offered assistance to the university, and Idaho State Police came into Moscow from all over the state in a show of force. The governor was so supportive, immediately pledging a $1 million donation or grant or whatever they were doing to accommodate our response to the crime and giving the green light to the ISP to provide help, Scott recalled. What is not widely known is that the significant and visible ISP presence was a force of volunteers. What? Now ISP was volunteering because I want to. I'm gonna have to do another FOIA to check these budget numbers. What? Hold on here. What is not widely known is that significant invisible ISP presence was a force of volunteers. They were not assigned, but officers from across the state responded to Moscow and provided security and comfort to our town and campus. What? No wonder Leslie Lehman was there. I wondered how she got her greasy paws up in that bitch. I was just kidding. I'm confused here, guys. So did they sign in like it was like a search squad? I mean, like, maybe those are the volunteers that were searching for the murder weapon. Chris McDonough was on that volunteer team. The governor was, I'm sorry. I'm just, wow. Wow, wait for it here. We put them up in vacant dorm rooms and provided meal cards. Wait, what? Okay. So ISP were staying in just dorm rooms and we gave them meal cards and they just lived on campus. They were not assigned. Remember, they were not assigned, but officers from across the state responded to Moscow and provided security and comfort to our town and campus. How could they possibly do that when they had to work their shifts with their job? Again, we put them up in vacant dorm rooms and provided meal cards. They became part of our community and were great with the students. There was a viral video of 2 officers who joined students sledding down a hill after a snowfall to the delight of the students. Where is that video at? Can we get that video? That simple act of humanity demonstrated that we were all in this together. Their visibility brought a sense of security to Moscow. They truly were our heroes those first few weeks in the wake of the crime. On Wednesday, November 16th, Moscow Police Department held the very first of many press conferences. Again, Moscow had never dealt with this type of event. The U of I lent a hand with the technology supporting the conference, which included MPD, ISP, and the U of I speaking to a press-packed room. Not all reporters could attend, but the forum was live streamed through the university's YouTube channel. That's not how it was at first. That first press conference was not through the YouTube channel, right? Tell me I'm wrong. When it came time for Scott to present, he started with the condolences for the victims and their families. It was at this time that raw emotion overcame him. I had been in reaction mode since I found out about the crimes, never taking the time or pausing to process the impact the loss of these students had on me personally, he shared. I started by reading, "This crime and the loss of these young lives is beyond comprehensible. While our small community is certainly not immune to such things, it is not a situation our close-knit campus is used to dealing with." So far, so good. Then, as soon as I started the second paragraph reading, "First, my deepest condolences to the families," I was just overcome. I had to stop, compose myself, and try to get through the rest of the speech. As a father of 2 recent college graduates, all I could think about was the pain these families were enduring. I am not proud that I lost my composure, but the upside was that our students and their parents knew without a doubt that I cared deeply about them and their welfare. Support for the president came rushing in from all over the country. It could not have come at a better time for him. The next 2 days were tough for him. Tough for me, he shared. Once the dam broke, it took time for all the emotional water to flow out. I knew I had to be strong for my team, so I managed, but it was not easy. His vulnerability resonated with so many people, Blaine shared. This was a powerful statement he made by being in the space like that. I told him thank you for expressing emotions that everybody is feeling. The university kept up a constant stream of communication. The administration sent a press conference recap to students and employees and other presidential memo on Thursday, November 17th, which provided the latest security response, a recap of the counseling services available. Did we ever get those? Scott also sent a Friday letter to alumni, including them in the shared grief and delivering a message of how vandals would all get through this tragedy together. From the date of the crime on November 13th through the end of the month, the team sent 18 emails. I want them all. Where are those emails? I am going to request those emails. 18 emails. Oh. Sent 18 emails to employees, students, and alumni. 6 of those messages were specifically from Scott, with one containing the president's heartfelt video. There's a video in there. It was a tough week for sure, Scott said. The incident would continue to challenge the administration as the story spread to international tabloids and cyber sleuths began identifying innocent people as suspects. Who? Law enforcement took a few punches as people wanting more information blamed them for not communicating details on the investigation. We were only following the lead of the parents. I think I didn't see that coming from the media. Okay, I saw that coming from the parents. Go back and check out we should watch some of the earlier coverage. Okay. I'm going to play a couple clips too. I'm glad they kept the investigation details to themselves, Blaine stated. That's how you get a conviction, Blaine stated. I'm glad they kept the investigation details to themselves. They mean announcing the type of weapon. I don't think that's keeping the details to yourself. MPD and the University of I held daily briefings with each other. Okay. The university was given daily briefs. Excuse me? Again, MPD and the University of Idaho held daily briefings with each other. But Blaine emphasized that the University of Idaho had no insider information about the status of the investigation or leads on who committed the crime. Then what the fuck were you briefing about? Personnel? The university provided as much information as they could to the police, working through the general counsel's office to ensure the details shared were done so legally. What did they need from the university? What did they need so badly from the university? What were the police wanting? Think about that. Brian didn't go to that school. On November 30th, the university held the long-promised vigil for Maddie, Kaylee, Ethan, and Xana in the Kibbe Dome on campus. A social media blast also invited anyone worldwide to join in the remembrance by turning on stadium lights, lighting candles, or holding a moment of silence. Thousands of students, employees, community members, and family converged at the Kibbe Dome. BRB. Here's a little video.
With over 100 programs at NCC, where do you start? To make it easier, we've grouped our programs into 10 different areas of study to help you get on a path to success right away. Think of an area of study like a family. Its programs, like members of that family, each share certain characteristics and similarities, but also have their own unique features that they bring to the world. How do areas of study work? Start by finding an area of study based on your interests, skills, and experience as you zero in on specific programs that appeal to you. Explore career options and transfer pathways within each of our majors. Then once you've decided on a major, you'll be assigned a success navigator who will ensure you choose the right classes in the right order to finish your degree on time without taking unnecessary credits. They'll also connect you with campus resources and help you stay on track. Get a taste of the major and it's not an exact fit? You can pivot to the right major within that same area of study seamlessly, saving you time and money. Check out our areas of study today and find a program that fits you.
This was the wrong video. Sorry. I heard through my earbuds. I said, wait, what the heck? But I did put that out there, but hold on. Oops. Oh, shit. Hold on. Oh, my God. That was not what I wanted to play. I was like, wait, what? It's not it. Oh, boy. Well, anyways, now that I'm back here, hold on. We'll come back. Jesus. Here you go. Sorry about did that wake anybody up? Like, were they like, oh my God, what's that noise? What is that? Thank you so much for the new membership. Feaslim, welcome back. What does it say there? Hi. It's been a minute. Green apple. Thank you so much, Super Sticker. Boom. Kim. Almost a baby. Oh, thank you so much. Love everything you guys do too. I think I found the that video, the slide video, or like them, whatever, sledding. Okay. Lana, I sent you the sledding video. That's what I thought. Okay. Yeah, I'll play that too. The sledding video. Okay, so thousands of students, employees, community members, and family coverage converged at the Kibbe Dome the night by walking through the metal detectors and descending the stairs to the turf. In place of using candles, Carrie, Corey, and Ryan had arranged for a scannable QR code to be available upon entering, so mourners had access to a candle app on their phone or device. Dozens representing media worldwide set up cameras at a designated area on the 50-yard line. One major U.S. network brought over a dozen media staffers to Moscow. Idaho Governor Little, Boise State University President Marlene, and representatives from Lewis and Clark State College and the SBOE attended to offer support and condolences. The victims' families were hosted in the Lighthouse Center so that they could watch from a distance if they chose not to get closer. Some spoke, but they mostly stayed in their perch above the Vandal family standing crowded side by side from one another, 50-yard line where the press was set up. The vigil lasted an hour and provided music from the university's choir, the Vandaliers, and comments by Blaine Scott, and most importantly, several family members of the victims who delivered memorable and touching stories of the students lost. There was not a dry eye in the house, Scott reflected. In Boise, approximately 300 gathered in front of Water Center to watch the vigil streaming live from the Kibbe Dome. It was equally as powerful from here in Boise, and many thanked us for providing space outside of Moscow to be part of the memorial. Blaine invited Lutheran campus minister Carla Newman Smiley to join him on stage to lead a moment of silence for each student. He then asked everyone to light up their electronic candles or phone flashlights as the house lights extinguished. Thousands of points of lights began to illuminate the darkness. In the moment, I knew the families had to see what I was seeing. Blaine shared, I stood on stage with a sea of lights. It was like diamonds. It was just beautiful. I would love for you all to turn your lights up to the right so the families up in the lighthouse suite can see. Okay. After moving moment of silence, Minister Newman Smiley led a prayer. The Vandaliers then closed the ceremony with a lovely rendition of Let the Life I've Lived Speak for Me. Schools and towns throughout Idaho, including Sandpoint, Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, you name it, and countless others turned on their lights to honor the 4 victims. In the wake of the on-campus vigil, the U of I did its best to counter misinformation through some well-placed interviews. Tori and Blaine performed most of those interviews, helping to carry the load. It was crazy, Blaine recounted. For the most part, the professional media did a fine job. We notified students they were going to see media on campus. We received some complaints from students. I had the hard job of explaining that because of freedom of speech, they're allowed to be on campus, but they didn't have to talk to them. I tried to remind them that if they did participate in talking to the media, to keep in mind that what they say gets back to the families and to be respectful to them and the lives lost. In the coming weeks, social media chat boards experts wrongly accused several students and employees of the crimes. The impact was devastating, with overwhelming scrutiny, hate mail, harassment, forcing those students into hiding. Who? Was the other about 4chan? MPD publicly cleared those wrongly accused, but that meant little to those who continue to believe they knew better than the investigators. Those folks with TikTok or the cyber sleuths were much more invasive, operating without ethics and doing it for likes on their channel or social, Blaine commented. They were much more disrespectful, especially to the students living on King Road. They're the ones who received the brunt of it. What was happening to the people on King Road? Who was fucking with the people on King Road? I must have missed that. Were people messing with people? The Globe published a headline that the 4 students were the victims of a Manson-like cult, Scott recounted. We learned of the story through a few alums and a relative of the Chapin family who saw the cover with photos of the victims on the magazine shelves in Boise. What were the Chapins doing in Boise? Chandra reached out to a top executive at the national grocery chain, Albertsons, who then had the publication voluntarily removed from their regional stores. Oh my God. Can I get a copy of that cover? Anybody got a copy of that cover? Funny how the Albertson grocery store will come back up where Brian Kohlberger was, for weeks there was incalculable fear. God, for weeks there was incalculable fear in Moscow and the surrounding communities that a killer was on the loose, not to mention a media frenzy to contend with on the University of Idaho's campus. During that time, everyone ached for more details, but more evidence and more facts. MPD and their law enforcement partners released little information to preserve the investigation's integrity for trial. But when they asked people to be on the lookout for a 2011 to 2016 white Honda Elantra, hope surged that they would name a suspect soon. Thankfully, in the early morning hours of December 30th, 47 days after the murders, law enforcement informed Kent Nelson, U of I acting general counsel, that they had made an arrest. All Kent knew at that point was that they conducted the arrest outside of Idaho. We would all learn later that morning that the arrest was in Pennsylvania, Scott said. I was in the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport traveling back from a holiday visit to my parents' house when I received a text message from Jody asking if I would organize a meeting for 10 a.m. that day. They recalled. I texted back, sure, but called her immediately. I was uncomfortable with the vagueness of the message, hungry for information after weeks with little, and ready to help if needed. She let me know there was movement on the case and that they would be doing a press conference at 1. We all needed to get together. As I was organizing the Zoom meeting from the airport, the reports that an arrest had been made started to hit the news outlets and popped up on my landing page feed. I ended up on the plane during the U of I's internal meeting and the press conference, but asked Brian to update me via text. Halfway through the flight, I started scrolling through various news channels via the complimentary entertainment screen on the back of the seat in front of me. That means you were sitting in first class. One by one, they began flashing a picture of suspect, telling what they knew about him and showing aerial footage of his parents' home in rural Pennsylvania. The details started to fall into place, telling a gruesome, horrific story. On early Sunday morning, sometime between approximately 4 a.m. and 4:20 a.m. on November 13th, 2022, Brian Christopher Kohlberger, a graduate student from Pennsylvania, studying criminal justice at Washington State University, PhD student, what the fuck are you talking about? 8 miles west across the border from the University of Idaho, allegedly slipped into the house on King Road. Nobody said allegedly on that broadcast. Not a single one. Allegedly slipped in the house of King Road adjacent to the U of I campus and brutally stabbed Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana to death. It was not a crime of passion, a fight with another student, or the work of a cult, as many amateur internet sleuths you didn't hear any of that shit over here. The attack appeared to be premeditated, and the perpetrator had allegedly prepared to execute his plan, relying on his criminal justice education to avoid detection. This is why this cannot be in this town. You gotta be fucking kidding me. He was not a known friend or close to any of the victims, which made identifying and arresting him more difficult and time-consuming. Again, he was not a known friend or close to any of the victims. Culver had driven across the country with his father from Pullman, Washington toward Pennsylvania during the December holiday break, but law enforcement had zeroed in on him based on surveillance videos, cell phone record pings, and other evidence. Thank you so much for saying that. All of which is lies. That's not how they zeroed in on him. Fucking out of here. The name Brian Culver was handed over to them due to genealogy. Fuck out of here. This bullshit. After tracking him to his family's home in Albright, Pennsylvania, and confirming DNA evidence at 3 a.m. on December 30th, Pennsylvania law enforcement entered the Culver home. Interesting that you think it was at 3. And took possession of a white Honda Elantra that they believed the killer used to travel to and from the murder scene. I sat on the plane dumbfounded by the fact that Kohlberger had attended class after the murders and then traveled to his family home for what I'm sure seemed to them as a normal holiday visit, a time for family, friends, and decompression. Lee shared. I shed a tear or two quietly, not sure if it was sadness or relief. At the same time, I could not help but draw the parallel to my family, who had woken up early to take me to the airport, a father's chore done with love after a nice visit. As stark as the comparison, the contradictions of knowing that 4 families had endured are much different. MPD hosted a press conference that day at 1 p.m. at Moscow City Hall, where MPD, ISP, and Scott delivered remarks. After the press conference, Scott sent out a communication to students, employees, and alumni that summed up the details of the case to that point. It read, here we go. Brian Christopher Culver was arrested in Pennsylvania last night in connection with the King Road homicides, according to the Moscow Police Department. The U of I does not appear to have any record of Kohlberger. No motive has been released by law enforcement. This is the news we have been waiting for and a relief for our community, and most importantly, the families of Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan. We are grateful for the hard work of law enforcement to protect our community and bring justice. It has been a stressful time for our university, but we never lost faith that this case would be solved, and are grateful for the hard work of MPD and their law enforcement partners. We appreciate the increased security presence on the Idaho State Police to bring comfort and calm to a community shocked and confused by the senseless crime. This was made possible by Governor Brad Little's financial support. So Brad Little's financial support, just so you guys know, went to the university and housing ISP volunteers. I thought it went to the investigation. Because I'm so confused. Who got the donation? The grant, whatever they're calling it. It was $1 million. Did it go to the school? Or did it go? Who was in charge of that money? This was made possible by Governor Brad Little's financial support. Hear that? And that was said right after the whole Idaho State Police being there. Across the board, vast and committed FBI resources brought important expertise to this complex case. Again, vast and committed FBI resources brought important expertise to this complex case. Across the board, dedicated, highly competent personnel worked on this case. Oh my God. I just want to fucking choke right now. Hold on. Competent. I'm sorry, but you'll never hear me say Idaho and competent in the same sense. It's just never going to happen. It's not going to happen. I just reserve my right to remain silent. Across the board, dedicated, highly competent personnel worked on this case. I didn't even write that. This crime has never, this crime has never The lesson left a mark on our university, our community, and our people. As such, counseling services remain available to all students over the break and when classes resume Wednesday, January 11th. So that means that they needed to pump. Employees needing assistance can use the free and confidential EAP resources available through their benefits or contact David. Classes in self-defense, stalking awareness, healthy relationships, and more, as well as the distribution of personal safety devices, will continue as planned. You guys, they were giving out self-defense lessons, stalking awareness. Tell me that Ann Taylor used this and that's why maybe that was closed. Remember I told you it was going to be used? I mean, this is wild. I want to know who took these self-defense classes. There's got to be some like pictures of people being like, I'm at my self-defense classes and I just got my mace, because everyone takes pictures of everything. Who was putting these classes on? Who was the instructor? I hope it was Jody Walker. Additional security personnel have been added to the university security team, and local law enforcement will increase patrols on campus and in nearby neighborhoods. Why? You guys arrested him. Why are we, what's going on here? The outpouring of support from across the state and nation helps sustain us during this most trying time. For the past several weeks, we were all vandals, and that provided the strength that helped us navigate the international scrutiny visited on our students and employees. Kindness is contagious and provided light that reclaimed ground lost to evil and darkness. We are thankful for the compassion shown to our community. The care for each other and resilience of the students and employees has been remarkable. Our students come first, and that was proven each and every day of this investigation. We are committed to safely delivering the college town atmosphere, campus experience, and high-touch quality education for which the University of Idaho is known. While we cannot bring back Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan, we can thoughtfully and purposely carry their legacy forward in the work that we do. Docs upon docs upon docs. We're going to have to take a look at those docs upon docs upon docs. 15 new documents. Are you sure? Why are you so many? The next few months, you guys, will be tough on their friends and families as the legal system begins the process of publicly prosecuting these crimes to bring justice. Let's keep them in our thought. They just said the following months. The day of the arrest, I talked to the dean of students at Washington State University 4 times, Blaine shared. I told her to hang on. The tidal wave that just went through our campus was headed her way. She had no problem inflicting her with, panic. Shortly after the arrest, a Latah County District Judge placed a non-dissemination order, a gag order, on individuals involved with investigation or evidence, including law enforcement, asking them to not discuss the trial with media. Even with the arrest, Scott knew reverberations would impact the University of Idaho into the future, including the care of its employees and the impact on student retention and recruiting. It was clear to me that the case would continue to be front and center in the media through trial. Scott said, despite the fact that the crime was committed off campus by an individual from another state, we would have to counter the view that the university is unsafe. For years, we were considered one of the safest campuses in the nation, and we will be again. But in the meantime, we prepared to respond to the inevitable questions about security and safety in our community. The entire university would face having students directly affected by the tragedy return to campus. Any one student or even University of Idaho employee could be among those who went to the house that morning, were siblings, or were in a class with the victims. went to the house that morning. Interesting. Any one student or even a University of Idaho employee could be among those who went to the house that morning. Who is the University of Idaho employee that went to that house that morning? It's very weird to even write that and say that, but okay. Thank you. The entire campus had to consider that healing takes time and no one grieves in quite the same way. In addition to those concerns, the president, faculty, and staff had to address the more pragmatic elements of getting back to educating students and advancing the U of I's reputation for safety and caring. Tons of motions to strike. Ooh, here we go. We'll interrupt this broadcast to take a look at a couple of these new documents. You guys, the way that I have to say this, one metric that would determine how well the university handled the crisis would be spring enrollments. On January 27, 2023, the university reported that spring enrollment at the University of Idaho was up. That's how they determined how well they fucking did with this crisis. Undergraduate enrollment increased by 3.5%. Graduate student enrollment declined slightly, but overall enrollment was up 2.1%. There's 9,300 kids that go to that school, like in totality, I think. This excluded dual credit high school students and supported the notion that the largest freshman class in the U of I's history had returned to continue their studies with the Randall family. University of Idaho's 2023 class. Furthermore, full acceptance also saw an increase. Maybe they were just accepting anybody in the school. You have a 2.0. Come on, let's go. The early verdict was that the University of Idaho cared about its students, and they in turn wanted to complete their education at the University of Idaho. Kohlberger sits in the Latah County Jail, held without bail, and awaiting an October 2023 trial. So think about when this book was wrote, right? A grand jury indicted him on 4 counts of murder and 1 count of burglary on May 17th, 2023. I thought it was before that. At a pretrial hearing in June of 2023, he stood silent when asked his plea. The judge entered a not guilty plea on Kohlberger's behalf. Prosecutors will seek the death penalty if Kohlberger is convicted. All right, let's take a look. University of Idaho student murders. We got new documents. So, here we go. Man. Motion, memorandum, and support. Motion to proceedings and apply rules of evidence. All right. First up, Ann Taylor comes with a bang. Motion. All right. Did that work? Okay, God, I hate that so small. Let me make this bigger. Motion, memorandum, and support of motion. The proceedings and apply rules of evidence during the eligibility phase. Argument. Idaho's death penalty scheme provides for 2 phases. One where the culpability of the accused is determined, and then if they are found guilty, a sentencing phase, commonly called the penalty phase. Problematically, at the penalty phase, the jury must actually make 2 determinations. These 2 determinations are, number 1, whether the defendant is eligible for the death penalty, and number 2, what is the appropriate punishment. A person is only eligible for the death penalty. The jury finds beyond a reasonable doubt at least one statutory aggregating circumstance. If the jury determines that the defendant is eligible for the death penalty, then it must decide if it is the appropriate sentence. Where a statutory aggravator is found, the defendant shall be sentenced to death unless mitigating circumstances which may be presented are found to be significantly compelling that the death penalty would be unjust. So, a return of a special verdict, whether the statutory aggravating circumstances has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. It is the state's burden to present evidence supporting each alleged aggravator. The Idaho Supreme Court has consistently held that the same facts cannot support more than one aggravator because it presumes that the legislator did not intend to duplicate aggravating circumstances. Therefore, trial courts must instruct jurors that they are required to find independent evidence to support each statutory aggravator alleged. Okay. In this case, the state has alleged 5 different statutory aggravators. Mr. Colbert anticipates that the state will attempt to introduce substantial evidence of aggravation which is not related to any statutory aggravator, including evidence about Mr. Colbert's past and evidence of Mr. Colbert's character. The state will also seek to introduce non-statutory aggravation evidence in the form of victim impact evidence. This non-statutory aggravation should be presented during a separate sentencing proceeding after the jury has considered the issue of eligibility based on the statutory aggravators. Under this construction, there would be a culpability phase, an eligibility phase, and a sentencing phase rather than just 2 phases. The jury would only be presented with non-statutory evidence during the sentencing phase and would therefore only be able to use it in its determination of whether a sentence of death is appropriate. The consideration of non-statutory aggravation only for the purpose of determining whether the death penalty is appropriate punishment is what is required by the statute. At sentencing, a quick glimpse of the victim's life may be given in the form of testimony about the victim's life. However, this quick glimpse has morphed into a full-length feature film in some cases. All right, we're going to come back to this part. We'll be right back on that. Next up, who's winning? Is Kansas City winning? Let's see, that's motion. Okay, motion for court order. Motion for court order requiring the state to provide notice of every alleged non-statutory aggravating fact circumstance it may rely on at any sentencing trial, and 2, to prove beyond a reasonable doubt every alleged non-statutory aggravating fact circumstance. Oh, wow. They just handed literally Bill Thompson a shitload of work. So, literally a shitload of work. In State v. Hall, the Idaho Supreme Court held for the first time that evidence of non-statutory aggravating circumstances is admissible in the capital sentencing process, and that it may be considered by the jury in determining whether to sentence an individual to death or life imprisonment. Mr. Colbert has argued elsewhere that Idaho's capital sentencing scheme, as articulated in Hall, is unconstitutional due to its arbitrary nature. Mr. Colbert maintains those arguments here. However, if the court disagrees and holds non-statutory aggravating circumstance evidence will be admissible at any potential sentencing phase in Mr. Colbert's case, then the court must enter an order requiring the prosecution to provide him with significant notice of any non-statutory aggravating fact or circumstance it intends to introduce and or rely upon during the sentencing phase, should one be held. Such notice is required by the Due Process and the Cruel and Unusual Punishment Clause of the United States and Idaho constitutions. Damn. Ooh, daddy. All right. We'll come back to that. Oh my gosh. I need to print these. Bill T is not going to have karaoke happening. Woohoo, popping in to say, hey, had to watch Delphi replay from this morning. Thank you. Yeah, we got new documents here. A shitload of work at a time. He is feverishly working to meet a deadline. Yeah, that just tickled his pickle. Let's see what else we got. I'll print these out so I can highlight what is up. Oh, how's my printer looking right there? Since it's up already. I'm going to print that. Okay, motion. Okay, motion to strike felony murder. Motion to strike future dangerous aviator. Motion to strike a HAC act. Motion to strike multiple victims. Motion to strike notice of intent to seek the death penalty. Motion to strike notice of intent to seek the death penalty. Vagueness. Motion to strike notice of intent to seek the death penalty. Contemporary standards of decency. Motion to strike notice of intent to seek the death penalty. International law. Motion to strike state's notice pursuant to IC 18 on grounds of arbitrariness. Motion to strike the death penalty, period. Motion to strike utter disregard. I want to see this one. Let's go with this one here. Oh, wait. Okay, hold on. Oh, boy. Share screen. Motion to strike the death penalty. Backseat bill. 33 pages. Holy fuck, I'm going to have a lot of reading. Motion to strike the death penalty on grounds of state speedy trial preventing effective assistance of counsel. Holy shit. Oh my God, you know who else this is a lot of work for? Judge, man. Oh yeah. I need some pickles, guys. Holy ballsack. 33 pages. Guys, I had plans tonight. Issues. Idaho requires all criminal defendants to be brought to trial in 6 months from the arraignment on an indictment pursuant to statute and its constitution. We all know that, right? Okay. A capital case cannot be prepared in 10 months. Idaho cannot force a defendant to choose between his rights. The Idaho Constitution requires a fixed amount of time. The court should adopt a 6-month line. Okay, let's see. On November 13, 2022, law enforcement found the bodies and arrested Brian. Mr. Colbert, current counsel, filed for a limited appearance the same day. His first appearance in court in Idaho was January 5th. On January 12th, Mr. Colbert filed a notice of appearance, request for timely preliminary hearing, motion for bail reduction, and notice of hearing, which contained a demand for speedy trial pursuant to the 6th and 14th Amendments. While Mr. Colbert prepared for a preliminary hearing, the state convened a grand jury on May 12th and May 16th. There you go. There you go. I knew May 17th date wasn't right. They had a grand jury on May 12th, and by May 16th, it had an indictment for Mr. Colbert on 4 charges of murder in the first degree and a count of burglary. This court arraigned Mr. Colbert on May 22nd, 2023. On May 23rd, 2023, pursuant to Mr. Colbert's right to a speedy trial, this court set Mr. Colbert's jury trial for October 2nd, 2023, a mere 10 months from his arrest. On August 23rd, 2023, Mr. Colbert waived his right to a speedy trial in order to secure his right to effective assistance of counsel. Idaho required all criminal defendants be brought to trial in 6 months from the arraignment on indictment pursuant to statute. Oh, wow. Pursuant to Idaho Code, a court must order the prosecution or indictment to be dismissed unless good cause to the contrary is shown. If a defendant whose trial has not been postponed upon his application is not brought to trial within 6 months from the date that information is filed with the court. When a defendant who invokes their statutory speedy right is not brought to trial within 6 months and shows that the trial was not postponed at his request, the burden then shifts to the state to demonstrate good cause for the delay. The Idaho Supreme Court has held that a thorough analysis of the reasons for the delay represents the soundest method for determining what constitutes good cause. Damn. In State v. Matthews, our court considered the issue of whether search warrants needed to be signed in order to be valid. The court found that warrants do need to be signed, or else a search pursuant to such a warrant will violate our Constitution. The court arrived at this conclusion despite the fact that Article 117 is completely silent regarding whether a warrant needs a signature. The reason the court was able to find a constitutional violation in this case was by acknowledging that the statutes which require signature predicate the Constitution of the state of Idaho. Because these statutes which require a signature on the warrants predicate the Idaho Constitution, they create a substantial right which existed prior to the adoption of the state's Constitution. All right. The right to a speedy trial was certainly well known to the framers of our Constitution. I love the way Jay writes. I know Jay wrote this, or Mathis wrote it. You can just tell. The court may require some explanation for what may seem a vague derivative terms, not only used from court. Where does it go back to I want to see about this case. He's trying to get creative. The Idaho Constitution guarantees a speedy trial except where there is good cause for delay. So how do all the delays happen? All that is left for discussion is what has become of the Idaho constitutional right and the statutory right pursuant to a speedy trial after legislation repelled the terms of the district court. Okay, the court. This court must decide what would be equivalent to the next term of court. You guys remember when all that happened, right? They wanted that stay, and that judge wouldn't let that stay happen. Here is argued above, the history of terms of court at the time of the adoption of our Constitution would permit this court to find that the framers did not wish for people to languish in jail awaiting trial. The courts were not to have fewer than 2 terms, meaning that stretching those terms to their limits, a person could not have sat for more than a year. Additionally, this requirement did not permit the judge to close court and leave the district without having tried the defendant's case. One can imagine the psychological effect that would have on a defendant to wait in jail and have the only person with the power to release them pack up and then leave the area. Oh, what the fuck are they trying to do? Since 1975, no defendant needs to worry that a judge will become unavailable, leaving them detained essentially incommunicado. All the same, the weight of imprisonment and awaiting a trial cannot be made much easier by having a judge available who does not hear your case, though you ask him or her to. To some extent, the feeling of begging for one's freedom and having it fall on deaf ears at time drags on might be worse. In 1980, the Idaho legislation amended to not permit a trial to be prolonged past 6 months. This court may consider the opinion of the legislature, which is also reflected in other states. Holy fuck. Similarly, here, where Idaho's framers intended a fixed line for when a defendant had waited too long for trial, but the foundation for the line has been erased. It is for the courts to do their duty and ensure that the intentions of the Constitution and its protections remain. A defendant in Idaho can never request additional time without losing his right to a speedy trial, as noted, and its territorial procedures that fix the right to speedy trial do not permit a speedy trial claim when the trial was quote-unquote postponed upon the defendant's application. This language could have been interpreted any number of ways, but in State v. Kaiser, the Idaho Supreme Court, with no analysis, declared that any request for delay from a defendant waived the statutory right entirely. As the territorial statute defining the constitutional right has the same language, the court can safely presume that Idaho Supreme Court, if it ever revisits the issue of what the constitutional right consists of, will hold the same as to it. Thus, no defendant may ever request a delay in Idaho if they want to preserve their right to a speedy trial. A capital case cannot be prepared in 10 months. With this 6 months to trial as a backdrop, modern death penalty work becomes impossible. Undersigned counsel is unable to fulfill the requirement of the ABA guidelines for the appointment and performance of defense counsel in death penalty proceedings. They're going to try to get them to get the death penalty off the table this way. The families want the case to happen, take the death penalty off the table, and we can continue on with your June date. Or if you keep the death penalty on the table, then there's no way there's a June date. That's what's going on. This is what's happening. Interesting move. And the university wants this over too because it's bad for biz. Wow. I need some pickles after I'm soaking this in. What a fucking ballsy play. They're just playing chess over here. Holy shit, did they just put them in a wow. Do you guys know what this means? Oh my god. Holy shit. Well, we should just leave that right here. It's perfect. 2-hour live, right where it should stay. The defense is advantaged by a liberal Boise non-DP jury. This may change from being a death penalty case all entirely. Lana, I already made 2 trips downstairs for pickles and cleared mine out. Dip them in spicy garlic chips. I'm just. Bill Thompson's gonna lose his dick, you guys. He's gonna fucking go. He's gonna be like, "What the fuck is this?" I want to hear. Let's see. I want to make this a little bit bigger. Hector, what do you think about this? Are you jealous that I'm using this? Hector's so jealous right now. We don't ever do. Good night, awesome people. Lana's the goat. I think you should probably call me. I have to tell you about something. You guys, there's a breakthrough in the Brian Drake case, like another bombshell, like ridiculous. Like I feel like I'm just gonna give you guys a little bit of a hint because I'm gonna try something right now. Have you guys ever? We're gonna do it right now on my phone. Ready? We're gonna see if it works. All right. Who out there uses *86 to call their voicemail? Is that like still a thing? *86?
Your call completed as dialed.
Oh, fuck.
Please check the number and dial again.
*86 not a thing anymore? How do you call fucking your voicemail now? I don't have an Android. Fuck. Who has an Android out there? Heather's like, there's 994 pages in all, I think. Really? That'd be a nice sideline reading for the soccer season. Does anybody have an Android out there? I haven't used *86 in 20 years. Okay, yeah, me neither. Like, who would ever do that to, like, you just hit your little voice button thing and you just click on whatever one you want to listen to, right? Yeah, *86 is how you listen to voicemails, right? Okay, those of you guys that have an Android, I need you to do me a favor right now. I need you to grab your phone and I need you to dial *86 and see what happens. *67, I think, is to block your number. You guys want to prank somebody? Is that why? Try calling your own number and see if it goes to voicemail. Okay, we'll try that. 1-440-622. Okay.
Please enter your password, then press pound.
Okay. Holy shit, this is going to work. Now watch this.
Please enter your password, then press pound. Please enter your password.
Holy shit, I'm smart. Watch this.
Are you calling me on purpose?
I'm calling you on the live on purpose. Yeah, because I'm about to prove a point. Ready?
Okay.
I called myself, which on my phone bill, it's going to register like I just called my voicemail. Okay.
Okay.
But guess what I also just did?
You called me.
Without dialing your number, and it's not going to come up on my phone bill.
How'd you do that?
Fucking genius. Oh my God, I'm right.
Yeah.
Holy shit, I'm
How'd
right.
you do it? Because that's how she did it.
I can't fucking believe this right now.
So how'd you do it?
Okay, I just called myself because I tried to do *67 or *86, And then it was like, you can't complete as dialed. And then Tom Campbell was like, why don't you just dial your own number? And so I just dialed my own number, right? And then what I just did is then I did a add call. You know how you can do that?
Oh, yeah, you can add a call to when, yep. Oh, she is one slick little shit.
Fuck yeah, bitch, suck my titties. Gotcha. Boom, motherfucker, boom.
Wow.
Remember
I asked you that before in the beginning? I'm like, you sure she didn't do like a
no, this is
third-party call or something?
but this isn't for her. It's for him. It's gonna blow your fucking mind when I show you this. This motherfucker was calling himself because I looked at I was like, wait a second, who the fuck calls voicemail and listens to a voicemail for 14 minutes and 30 seconds? I was like, nobody listens to their voicemail for 14 straight minutes.
No.
Okay. And so I started looking at
So he's checking his voicemail, but adding a call to it so
to
that
the person that
he
he's
can't see the call.
bitches, get money.
Yeah, you see, well, yeah, she was stalking him, man.
Yep. Holy shit. This is unbelievable right now.
What was he doing? God, whatever this dude was doing.
And then so what I was looking at is I was looking at the calls that were coming in. Okay. Like, because on your phone record, you know, if you're looking at your phone records online, the missed calls don't come up as they're not going to come. You have to either like, you know what I'm saying? Like they may come up in a Cellbrite, your missed calls, but you're on a bill. You have to have some type of either an ingoing or outgoing, and it has to have communication. And so, but, and then and if somebody actually has your physical phone, you can even just delete that call like ever happened, you know? But what this hoe found out, I think like me with anything, like, I mean, if she's like such a hardcore, like sleuther, like she thinks, then she's over there like, I know this motherfucker's doing this and I need to figure this out. You know what I'm saying? Because she used the word sleuth with her friends. I thought that was hilarious. I'm like, nobody just uses that word. Like you, if you know that word, like you digging. I am talking. Yes, I am. Holy shit. Okay. So now what I'm going to check out is tomorrow I'm going to get on my account and I'm going to look and see if you see how this shows up on. I'm going to get someone to do it.
It's going to show up as you checking your voicemail and being on the call with me for as many minutes as we're on for. Let's see how many minutes we got.
It's not even going to, yeah, it's going to, no, yes, it'll say that I'm in what then I would say is, yeah, I have all these people that set up their appointments and they just leave me voicemails and then I have to go through them and write down them on the sheet. I mean, do you know how sick this is?
He just figured out a way to be able to make phone calls without her knowing who he's talking to.
Yeah, that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
And then, but I think that if she would have ever caught on to, why are you're watching your voicemail?
Yeah.
At Truth and Transparency, I love you to death, but I'm holding my breath till you actually add me back. I don't know who Silly Little Rabbit is.
I don't know who that is either.
This is fucking wild. Because then what I was looking at is I was like, okay, this would happen at very important times. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you'd want to look at, you know how some people would do it like this. Right. Okay, like back in the day, remember when everybody had landlines, okay? And there were some families out there that they're like, okay, hey, I'm going to get caller ID. That was like such a big thing. Or that you were using like that star 69, star 67 was like, it would call back the last person that called. Okay. So what you would have back in the day is people would call your house, right? And then you'd hang up. Okay. If you answered the phone and I didn't want to talk to you.
See the last one that called in, yeah.
Well, yeah, or let's just say that, like, let's say that you have a husband or a girlfriend and I call you and that other person answers, I hang up really quick, right? Because it wasn't them. All right. And then that allowed your person to know, like, okay, they're trying to get in touch with me, or until people start getting that devices, which is like caller ID, blah, blah. Because I remember it was happening like when I'm like, who the fuck is pranking our house? I was like, I don't even think it's pranks. I was like, I think those are signal calls. anyways, so point of the story is that what I thought about is that if this was even happening, if Brian Drake was getting phone calls that he knew that he couldn't answer because it would show up on the bill, but you could at least call me to let me know that you're available. I won't answer it, but then I'm going to make this type of a call, and then that's how I'm going to call you. Okay? So I started paying attention to the where and when these voicemails were being listened to. Like who had just tried to call. Okay? Because the only way that you can do that is if you actually have the cell right, though. Because on the call history detailed, you don't get that. You don't if you don't answer that phone.
If you didn't pick up the incoming, right?
On the call, yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. But when you have call detailed next to Cellbrite and you're looking at everything like this, I'm able to see, okay, who tried to call Brian Drake right before he did this.
Before he checked his own voicemail.
Yeah. Look at those numbers that were missed calls right before then. And where he's having, because like right now I'm on a camera, like I'm on the phone with you for 7 minutes and 58 seconds. And I believe this is going to show up that I was checking my voicemail for, whenever we press hang up. And so I'm going to take a screenshot of this because I'm going to look at my online bill and see what would come up. Because I know that motherfucking bitch was checking daily.
Have you ever left an 8-minute long voicemail in your life for anybody?
No, but it looks like he's checking his voicemail, not leaving one.
No, but that's what I mean, though. Like,
well, that's what I'm trying to tell you. I think he was saying people leave messages from work on when they want their appointment, so that I'm going through my phone's voicemails. All these people call, scheduling their appointments.
I get that. That probably is what he's saying. I'm just saying, like, how dumb can someone be? Nobody leaves voicemails that are like 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes long.
Mm-hmm. I'm saying how this is fucking wild. All right,
he's doing exactly what you just did. I get what you're saying. He checks his voicemail, but then he may have.
Yeah, he's not really. He's not checking. He's acting like he's checking, but there's nothing fucking there.
Yeah, there's nobody there. He's actually just using it to make his call without it actually showing up.
Yepers. Yeah. Boom, bitches! I got you. This is so sick. Sick. Hi, Lana. Saw you on with Melanie and Mark earlier. Glad I made your live. Keep up the good work. Definitely wasn't on with Melanie and Mark, but thank you for being here. Holy balls. Okay, girl. I'll call you later. Or if you're going to bed, call me tomorrow. Okay, bye. All right. Well, let's see how this looks then. See, holy shit. Okay, so like my iPhone registered it. It gave it to 86. It gave it for canceled call. Then it has me calling myself for 1 minute outgoing. And then it has Miss Potts for 9 minutes. Now, if I go in here and I delete that this even exists, and I delete that, delete that. Now, I go and check my phone records, my call detail records through my provider, and I see what the fuck it says. And the only person, I think it's T-Mobile, that will show you when you're merging conference calls. But I want to know what it shows when you're using it to listen to your voicemail. But they didn't have T-Mobile. And I think with Verizon and AT&T, Verizon doesn't do it like that. Holy shit. Well, would that call be recorded on your voicemail? Nope. Because I never merged it back over. I bet you I could try. I mean, this motherfucker's scheming. Fuck, dude. Holy shit. Talk about a man needing to get some. I was so sick. Fucking, I'm gonna call this girl. I don't give a fuck. Today's the day. Saddle up.
Welcome to Verizon Wireless. The number you dialed has been changed, disconnected, or is no longer in service. If you feel you have reached this recording and
Holy shit. I'm right. I know I'm right. Balls, that sucks. All right, guys, that's going to be a wrap. I'm going to do some work. There's just a really huge breakthrough in the Brian Drake, Dr. Moore case today. Like, extremely. Like, mind-blowing. How long can a voice... I don't record... Okay, so I'm going to explain it. Okay, so this is what happens. If you take your phone, call yourself. When you're calling yourself, it's gonna do what it just did for me to like say, oh, put your password in, and then it will start playing your voicemails. But you don't want to do that. Just let it keep asking that. But when you call yourself, all right, when I call myself, it then prompts, once I've made a connection and my phone's in connection, it then will prompt me to be able to add a call while I'm on the phone. And so you want to hit the button, add call, and then just hit the person that you want to call, and then never merge back over to the voicemail call. Like leave it like in kind of like it's a holding. And you're going to be able to have, or you can merge it. And I think he was merging it. And it's going to look like, from your phone records, it's going to look like you were listening to your voicemail for 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 10. Instead of what you really were doing is you were talking on the phone with the person that you want to be talking to, but you don't want anybody to know that who's looking at the phone bill. They're not going to be able to see who you're talking to. And it could be that you're talking to drug dealers. It could be that you're talking to, people that you're hooking up with. It's clearly a way to prevent your phone bill from revealing who you're talking to. And then I think that if questioned, this person would say that they were listening to their voicemails, my guess, and why they're so long. Because it's just fucking crazy. Holy fuck. And this is amazing. This is fucking so amazing. When you look at your bill, it's going to look like if they grab your phone, you're going to be able to delete the phone, so they're not going to see anything out of there. So that's not going to work for that. They have to then, if they have access, because like, let's say you're married, they go online and they're checking in real time to see who you're talking to and when you're talking to them. They can also see who you're texting, but they can't see the messages per se, but they're going to have the phone number. So And if somebody's monitoring your calls through watching online, they don't get the missed calls. The missed calls don't pop up on stuff like that. It doesn't say that, this number called you 6 times in a row and you missed the call. All right, guys. Thank you. Sharp. Yes. Slang. I love slang. You guys all rock. You guys all rock. Holy balls. Holy balls. This is wild. This is going to be fucking amazing. Do me a favor, guys, and pull up the Washington and Idaho missing persons national databases and let me know any hot toddies that may be on there from 2020, 2018 to 2020. Okay, thanks. Chat soon. Damn. Thank you, mods. Love you. Peace.
Oh, really? You just ditched it? Awesome.
Yeah, those ones kept walking to the car.